rotation that all opted out. Rajon Rondo, Avery Bradley, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Those are three guys that were integral into not even the Lakers' run in the restart in Orlando, but throughout that season. So picking up Wesley Mathews, who I thought was a steal in free agency last year for the Milwaukee Bucks, this is a guy that can get it done on both ends. When you need a physical defender on the wing to slow down penetration, Wesley Mathews is that. And of course, if you're playing with LeBron, you're going to need shooters around him, and Wesley Mathews can find different spots on the floor to make himself an impact from the three-point line. So this is a good pickup for the Los Angeles Lakers.
Brandon, I want to bring you in on this. What are you thinking about this deal right here?
Yeah, I was just wanting to look at something here. I mean, it's interesting because it's going to impact both teams, right? You know, first with the Lakers, since we're there, they're looking for these sort of minimum level deals, and everything won't actually be a minimum, but these are like below mid-level players, discount players. They gave up one in Danny Green. They're going to make that cheaper. They get a really good player back in Dennis Schroeder for him. So where can they find the discounts? And there are guys that are going to be clamoring to get to LA. So maybe it's a win. I'm not sure that he's the level player Danny Green is. So they might take a bit of a hit there. But then I'm thinking about Milwaukee, and really that takes an option off the board for them. So while he opted out, you know, they have a chance to re-sign him back for, you know, just a little bit more. I mean, he's looking to see what market he has. So that's a player that knows the system, that has a chance to take them to at least the level they were last year, and hopefully with the right pieces a little bit further. So great pickup for the Lakers and tough for the Milwaukee. I mean, you damage your opponent. That's really what this is about.
And Brandon, I have to ask you a quick question about this signing for Wesley Mathews and him going to the Lakers. What does that say to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? Does he still want to come back to the Lakers? Does he try and pursue other options across the league to try and get more money?
Well, I think one might not necessarily cancel out the other. I mean, both things can be true. I think KCP is going to look at what might be the most lucrative deal for him, but also what makes the most sense. So you may get a better offer financially from another team. But here's a chance to play at a high level and really maintain value. As long as he doesn't lock himself up for too long, he could be back in the market and make money when the team starts to decline or when there's a change with LeBron. So I would think that he's still available to them. The Lakers are going to still have room, and they're going to have their mid-level exception. I don't know that KCP is in a market any bit above the mid-level. So the Lakers still have probably they're in the catbird seat in terms of negotiating with him.
Yeah, getting word from Shams that this is a one-year, $3.6 million deal for Wesley Mathews. But let's take a look at this
coaching staff. It allows them to be a little more creative with their offense, knowing that Dragic is going to be back with Jimmy Butler and seeing how that chemistry was able to really strengthen in that time in Orlando. So I love this pickup for Miami and having Dragic come back. Now it just really shores up the guard rotation that Erik Spoelstra will have.
So I'm hearing 2 years, $37.4 million. Brandon, I want to bring you in on this. Dragic staying in Miami. How do you like this move?
Well, I would say this falls in the expected category, at least from my seat. They got so close. This is a time when you reward the guys that are really important to your run and then maybe kind of make some shifts around the edges. He was so critical. He could have been better and more impactful had he not suffered the injury. But here's, one of the things I'm thinking, and we'll get these details over time. Agents love announcing the bigger number, but is there an option on the second year? Because the Heat want to maintain some flexibility to go big game hunting next summer, next off season, and then if they come up short, they always have a chance to go back with the same group with controllable numbers. But in any case, well deserved. We knew there to be a discount on the money that he's been making now that he's gotten a little bit older, and they got to give themselves some room to possibly make deals if they have to do this, not by free agency but by trade.
We also know that Kelly Olynyk, he picked up his player option of $13.6 million to stay in Miami. What are you thinking, Cam, this team's plans are to kind of continue this momentum that they've created in the postseason?
Running back. That's the energy that they're bringing to next season is run it back. They were so close of achieving another NBA championship with this roster that really no one gave a chance to when you think about the expected teams that were going to be there in the NBA playoffs, whether you talk about the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. Miami proved that they not only defensively are one of the better teams in the NBA with Kelly Olynyk, but they can also spread the floor offensively with Olynyk. Now you're bringing back Dragic. We know Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler. So they're just telling the NBA that we're going to run it back. Let's see who can beat us, because right now they're the favorite in the East to go back to the NBA Finals.
Brandon, how successful can this team be if they end up running it back like this?
Well, look, I love the idea they could run it back, but they got to remember they're running back against teams that aren't staying still. The Sixers just got better. And that's really impactful. Milwaukee still got work to do, so we don't know exactly where they end up. But, this is not going to be a cakewalk back to the finals. I think they showed us that they still need some depth, and I think they need some veteran experience at the big spot. Bam is emerging as a young star, but they weren't very deep there. I mean, when he got injured or when he was in foul trouble, they were light. So I'd like to see what they do there. But this really fortifies them at the one. Remember, Kendrick Nunn had some trouble kind of finding his way, finding his balance and his game again after the coronavirus. But they're going to be good at the 1, 2, and potentially 3 spot. But they still got work to do. And it's not the draft. The draft does not help them in a finals run. That's development. They've got to go out and get another player. And look, they still got some negotiating with their own guys that are free agents at this moment.
Brandon, you bring up a good point about the Miami Heat needing another player in that front court, because we saw them suffer those injuries, and it really depleted their roster in that position. So who's a name or a couple of names that would be a good fit for that Miami team? Because we know that they hang their hats on the defensive end.
This is probably trade, and I don't know. We have to really dig in and see exactly what they want to do with, the Olynyk, the Myers Leonard. Myers Leonard was really important to them earlier in the season and found his way out as a stretch big, who can be physical. Maybe he no longer fits, their design. But I do think what they're going to need is real length. Bam is an athletic but undersized big. He will have his advantages offensively and in some ways being switchable and out on the perimeter. But remember, there's like one big man that you got a game plan for, Joel Embiid. They came up short this year. But what will be the answer? And I don't mean a pound-for-pound answer or necessarily somebody who will score with him, but is going to be able to absorb and slow him down and make things a little bit harder. That's a matchup we didn't see much of this year, and expect that to get more rugged. So they got to go out and find real size.
All right, let's get to Shams. I'm hearing that he has some news for us. What's up, Shams?
Yeah, so Raptors free agent Fred VanVleet will meet with multiple teams at the start of free agency, I'm told. As soon as later tonight or early tomorrow morning, he will have multiple meetings. And there is interest out of Toronto for Fred VanVleet, who should have a robust market in free agency. And overall, there's a lot of history for Fred VanVleet in Toronto. He's won a championship there. He's really been groomed there and has learned there since signing an undrafted free agent deal out of Wichita State. But Fred VanVleet will meet with multiple teams at the outset of free agency.
All right, thanks so much for that, Shams. And no surprise there that many teams are interested in Fred VanVleet. We've seen him steadily rise on the court. Maybe what are some destinations that might be a good place for Fred to land?
All right, New York, Amina. I got to say it. The Knicks, and I mentioned them about not really throwing a lot of money at one of these free agents, but that's a guy that could potentially come to New York and really help this team. You think about a point guard in Fred VanVleet, who some consider undersized, but I think when you measure up his game and his heart, he's not undersized with what he brings to the court. He's proved that time and time again in his stay in Toronto. So there's going to be one team, at least that I know of, that the Knicks will want to try and go after. Potentially, if that dollar value doesn't get too high, it's Fred VanVleet.
You can't get too high in New York. Brandon, I want to bring you in on this one. Any potential landing spots on your list for Fred VanVleet?
Well, I give the advantage to the home team, because I think they're already shaping the future of this team around him as the lead guard. But look, there's so many things that neither the team actually or the player can control at this moment. I mean, that's disruption. The fact that they're starting their season not in their home market, like, I don't know if that, which way that cuts really, but it certainly doesn't make you more comfortable. I would expect that if it's not the home team, he's got to really look hard at New York. I think it'd be a great fit long term because he's playing alongside a guy that actually can handle the ball some, but shouldn't be the primary ball handler. They just had a nice pickup in the draft. So, I won't go too strong in making the case for New York. Sorry, Amina. But they are interesting if he can get away from a great culture built in Toronto.
Yeah, we've really seen Fred VanVleet really play in the background for the last couple of years. And then, of course, you go to Toronto in 2019, you win an NBA title and obviously doing well inside of the bubble this past season. How would you describe, Cam, Fred's rise in the NBA?
Wow, it's something that you got to admire because this is a guy that we talked about this earlier with Gordon Hayward, who bet on himself by opting out of that $34 million deal. Fred VanVleet from day one bet on himself when it came to the draft and let teams know that, hey, I want to go undrafted and I'm going to prove myself and raise up my dollar value and bring some kind of production and really stability at the point guard position for Toronto. And you have to look at him as one of the main pieces why the Raptors were NBA champions. So Fred VanVleet has always been a guy from the Chicagoland area that was overlooked, didn't really get as much recognition as other names, and he took that as a chip on his shoulder and went out to prove that each level, whether it's high school, college at Wichita State, we saw them during that run, but also more importantly with the Toronto Raptors. So this is a guy that I think is ready for the bright lights in maybe New York.
Look, don't get me excited. Cam, I'm not going to mess with you right now. Brandon, I want to bring it back to you.
Okay.
Like I said, we've seen what Fred VanVleet has been able to do in the NBA. How would you describe his career up until this point?
Well, one of the points that Cam just made, I love, and he took actually, I remember talking to Jerry Stackhouse very early on in his career. He said, this kid that we picked up, he was in Toronto, he said, he's just tough-minded, and we got to value like the winning mentality, and that's something that stuck with me, and in particular in the way to evaluate players. You get away from sort of the metrics of how fast they are and how long they are and how high they jump, and think about, like, do they find ways to win? And that's what Fred has done. I mean, he did it at the D League level, the G League level. He did it as a winner, finding a way onto the roster, and then ultimately a champion. So you can't underestimate him. And I think he's done a great service to the way that we scout some of the smaller conferences and some of the kind of what might typically overlook players coming through the draft. So he will resonate well beyond these early years and this early story.
Yeah, I got to tip my hat to Fred VanVleet coming out of one of those smaller conferences, or like people like to call them mid-majors, the Missouri Valley Conference. Shout out to my Southern Illinois Salukis.
A little plug right there. I like
a little something.
Let's take a time out here on Inside the Association, our free agency special. Shams is working hard for us, breaking some news, and I'm sure he'll have some news for us when we get back. Stay right there.